things. Hi. Hope you're all well. Hi. So it's nice to be back. I hope you're joining me for my Workbench Wednesday number 6. Workbench Wednesday number 6, and gosh, that's again, it's flown by. And today I'm going to be talking about sizing for silver clay rings, because it's a tricky subject, really. So give us a wave, give us a nod, give us a like, a hit or something. Let me know if anybody's there, or I'm just talking to myself again. I'm hoping I can see bits and pieces. I can't see anything again. Comments. Can I see comments? Wiz, if you're watching, I just picked up a message from you about last week. So let's pick up from last week. I talked all about polishing last week. And I have posted, hi Lynn, and I have posted a picture of all the little samples I ended up doing. I ended up doing more than I originally planned. So I did do a whole post, a picture of all the little samples I did. Now, Wiz, you've just said to me, can you share better photos? Yes, because I tell you what, the clay I was using, because these were just little samples, I was quite literally using floor sweepings of clay, because you know, making samples can get expensive, can't it? So yeah, the clay did contain debris and bits of gunk that eventually burns out and does leave dings in it. So I can honestly say that there are lots of dings in those little samples, which are just the bits of debris that have burnt out. So it doesn't give you a beautiful flawless finish on the polishing. However, having done that now as a little exercise, I think I'm going to do it again properly using brand new fresher clay out of the packet. And while I have done the videos, and I'd like to share with you those videos again, I'm thinking about doing it all over again to make it even better, because quite honestly, yes, the pictures don't do it justice, and I think I can do it better. I can make those things look better. The radial discs are fabulous, Wiz. They really are. I do like them a lot, and I do think you can get great polish on them. So I agree, those pictures don't do things justice right now, but if you bear with me, I will do it again, because I think there's better images I can produce and better video that I can produce. You know, when you do something once and you think, well, I can do that better. Have you ever made anything and done that? I do that all the time. I make something and go, I could do that better when I make it next time. Well, that's exactly what I've done. Made it once and I think I can do it better. So I will be doing it better before I put it out there. So hi Randy, hi Kate, nice to hear from you. Thank you for joining me. So before I forget, there's one thing I want to say. A couple of weeks back as well, hi Wiz. A couple of weeks back I did a draw for a goodie bag, and a lovely lady by the name of Joyce Monroe won the goodie bag. Now then, despite all my best efforts to get in touch with Joyce to say she'd won a goodie bag and I'd love to post it out to her, but I need her address, I've not had any joy in getting any response from her to know where she lives or anything. So if anybody knows Joyce, could you drop me a line or get in touch with her and ask her to get in touch with me, please? Because if this is not claimed by next week, I'll make the draw again, so someone else can have this goodie bag. I want to give it away. So it's just here sitting over there. So if anybody else is out there and knows Joyce, then please drop me a line or drop her a line and tell her that the goodie bag is waiting for her. Hi Nikki, nice to see you. Nice to see you join us. So moving on, I've got my notes again. Notes everywhere. Make sure I get everything in I want to say. So making rings can be quite challenging, because the problem with making rings is we've got shrinkage on the clay, of course. Now, clay shrinks by volume, so it doesn't shrink. So if you're making a ring, it doesn't just go like this. It shrinks by volume. So it goes, I've done a little picture, look. So the clay goes from the inside and the outside. So the clay will shrink in both directions, if you know what I mean. And depending on the size of the ring, the bigger and chunkier and fatter the ring, the more it'll shrink. That kind of makes sense. So you've got a lot of considerations to make here. I'm just seeing if I'm scrolling through, making sure I can see everybody's comments. So when you're going to size a ring, you've got to think about the design of the ring. Is that Joyce Monroe, Sarah? Yes, that is Joyce Monroe. Sarah, do you know Joyce Monroe? If you do, please drop her a message or drop me a message so I can get it to her. So getting back to my rings. So yes, sizing these rings can be challenging. You do find that, you know, our hands swell and contract throughout the day, or time of the month if you're a woman. The weather conditions can all make your hands swell and contract. So taking those ring measurements in the first place can be quite challenging. You've got to make sure that you are well, and all the rest of it. So when I teach rings in my workshop, I do find people struggle with this, getting this. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the messages. I know Joyce. Sarah, you know Joyce. Fantastic. Well, please give us a buzz or let us know. So yes, people do struggle with rings and getting the sizing right. Now, I've got a few tips. Here's what I do to make sure that we get that sizing right. So there's a couple of factors here. First of all, yes, your hands are going to swell and contract. First of all, pick in a ring gauge to measure your finger. So depending on the style of ring you want to make will depend on the ring gauge that you need to select to take that measurement. So for example, before I get into the ring gauges themselves, I'm going to show you my little example. So I've got a very basic small skinny band ring here, and this fits my finger perfectly. Okay, and it's a beautiful fit. Now, this is a ring I've made, and if I measure this on my ring gauge, on my ring stick, this is a size N. Okay, size N. My wide, very wide ring here, again, fits my finger beautifully. And because this is a wide ring, it's taking in all that fleshy bit of my finger. So I probably need a bigger ring than this little skinny ring, because that little skinny ring sits right down against my knuckles, well, practically against my knuckles here. And I've still got all this fleshy bit of my finger exposed. Whereas the wider ring band, all that fleshy bit of my finger is within the ring band itself. So, you know, the skinniest part of my finger right down at the bottom is narrower than the fleshier bit of my finger there. So having measured this, which is a size N, when I measure this comes out a size P. So this is almost 2 UK sizes bigger, just because of my finger, the fleshy bit on my finger. So there's something to consider, how thick and how wide your ring band is going to be. Hi, truck. So when you are measuring your finger, if you're going to make a wide band ring, you need to use a wide ring gauge. Or if you're going to make a narrow ring band, you need to use a narrow ring gauge, little narrow ring gauges. Now there are these plastic ring gauges which look like a bit like cable ties, which I'm not a massive fan on. I don't think you can get a really accurate ring measurement off those. I'd sooner use some proper ring gauges. So if you're wanting a narrow band ring, then use a narrow band ring gauge. If you're using a wide band ring, then use a wider band ring gauge to get your more accurate sizing. So that's ring gauges to start with. Okay, and then we need to look at the ring mandrels themselves. So the standard ring mandrels that you can buy for metal clay are these wooden tapered ring mandrels, and like everybody else, I probably bought these when I first started ring making, and this was certainly what I was taught on when I was started out in metal clay. However, you know, as time goes on, you learn bigger and better things. Hi Shirley. You learn better things as you go along. So I much prefer these days straight mandrels. Now I have a set of these straight mandrels, and they come in different sizes. Each side of the peg is a different size, ring size. And I have these metal ones. I know some of them come in plastic and some of them come in wood, but I much prefer to have these straight ring mandrels. They will give you a straight ring band, especially if you're working on a wide ring band. If you're working on a wide ring band on a tapered mandrel, you'll end up with a tapered ring. So, you know, if you want a nice wide band ring that looks round and not tapered by the time you finish, then use a round ring mandrel. And as I say, each side of these pegs, they've got a whole set of these, and you can get them in sizes and half sizes if you want them as well. So use a wide a round ring mandrel. Okay, so we've looked at the measuring of your finger with a ring gauge. We haven't got onto the sizing yet, and we've looked at the types of ring mandrel. If you don't have these ring mandrels, or you don't want to buy any, because the sets can be a little bit more expensive than just the tapered ones, of course they can, and then you can always just use a piece of wooden doweling with some gaffer tape wrapped on it until you get to the correct size you want. So this is a little bit of a faff, because you then have to say if that's the size you want to make, you're going to have to work out that, you know, whether you want more or less gaffer tape on there to get the correct size. Now that's a piece of wooden doweling. You could use a pencil, and I've just wrapped some masking tape on here to get to the same point, to get the right size of ring I want to work on. So yeah, but you know, if you are going to be making lots of rings, I then invest in some straight ring mandrels. I think they are really, really helpful. So once you've got your correct type of ring gauges, you've decided on your ring mandrels, we're on to sizing. Now this is where it gets challenging, because really the sizing is down to the design of the ring, the size of the ring, how you're going to fire it, the product that you're using. You know, different brands and different products have different shrinkage rates. So these are all factors that come into the shrinkage and the problems that occur. So once you choose a ring, hang on, I need my glasses on. Glasses. I see the letters on here. Okay, so let's find the right size. Where are we? Okay. So for a wide band ring, I need to make sure that the ring gauge comes on and off my finger with ease, that I'm not having to pull it on and wriggle it over the knuckle or squeeze it on. In order for sizing to be correct, in my book, this is what I do all the time. So the ring gauge goes on. If it slips on and off my finger without too much pushing and shoving and heaving and hoeing and trying to get it over a lumpy knuckle, then I know that that's going to be about right. So having chosen the size I want my ring to be, now if I'm working in Art Clay Silver 999, these days I know I want, oh, ping, 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 there's lots of ping, ping, pings going on here. I know I want to move up on my ring gauge by 3 increments. So 1, 2, 3, if you can see that. So that's the original size I want to make. So I've moved up 1, 2, 3. So that's the size. Oh, I've gone the wrong direction. That's the size I want. I've gone smaller. So that's a common error. I've seen people do that before. So that's the size I want. I need to go larger. 1, 2, 3. There you go. 3 sizes larger. And that's the size I want to make if I'm working in Art Clay Silver 999. Now, what about all those other brands of clay as well? So this is where perhaps you need to think about doing test samples. And I've done lots and lots of test samples. Let me just bring this in. Here are my little test samples. They're all labelled up. Okay, they're all labelled up like this. And this is the little chart that I've scribbled out for you. Now, if you want to take a snapshot of that, great. I will post a picture of this on the group later. But basically, I recommend you start making your own chart so that everything you do is measured. So how you measure your finger and how you wrap the paper onto the mandrel or whatever it is that you're going to do in preparation for your mandrel, how you wrap your clay onto the mandrel, and how tightly you wrap it, if you stretch the clay or if you don't stretch the clay. All of these tiny factors will make a difference. When you've dried it, you take it off the mandrel, how much you refine on the inside of the ring. You know, when you've got a ring and then you start tidying up on the inside, if you start taking clay away from the inside, that's going to alter the size of your ring as well. So make yourself a chart, because this chart is made up of, so this is the brand of clay I'm using, and then this is the style of the ring. So this is a flat band ring, it's 1 mil thick and it's 5 mil wide. That's all of these little samples. This is how I made my little chart. So the manufacturer's shrinkage rate, that's what the recommended manufacturer's shrinkage rate is. So I kind of standardized all my little samples I made so I could get my shrinkage values, if you know what I mean. So I made each of these rings to a UK size T or US size 10, whichever way you want to look at it. I then fired them all at 870 degrees C for 1 hour, all the same rings, and these are the shrinkage rates that happened. Okay, as I say, I will post this. Now, if you're using different brands of clay or different firing schedules, or different styles of ring, if you're making little skinny rings, then you might want to create your own little charts. So you've got a record of what it is that you particularly do, whether that's, you know, not working as an artist to make rings to sell to customers, or whether you're teaching. Then I think this is an important part of the process, so that you can give the information that you work towards. So make your own little chart, like that. So I'm going to go back a little bit. So once you've chosen your little ring mandrel, okay, that you want to do, the size you want to make yours, then you're going to wrap it with either, I like using freezer paper. This is freezer paper that you can get in Hobbycraft, the big Hobbycraft stores, and this has got a shiny waxy side and a paper side, and it's the shiny waxy side of the paper that, well, I will use on the outside here, because the clay doesn't stick to this shiny waxy side of the paper. Alternatively, you might want to use a really nice thin bit of Teflon to wrap around It's personal choice. There are those art clay papers, and they look a little bit like a post-it note, and they've got measurements on, and I still haven't got my head around how those measurements work. So it's either, for me, it's either a piece of Teflon or the paper. Now obviously these have got a thickness to them as well. Now the increments of difference on the inside of a ring from one size to another can be as little as a millimeter. And you know, whether you're wrapping a piece of paper around there, it's still got a bit of thickness to it, so you know that might make a difference too. Now when I am using these papers, the freezer paper, this comes on a massive big roll. You'll get it in the quilting section of Hobbycraft, because the quilting ladies use it. Then I take a pencil and a pen. A pen that works is usually preferable. Let's use a Sharpie so you can see a nice big line, and I draw a nice big straight line down my paper like so, and then I'm going to wrap my paper onto my mandrel, and where the paper overlaps, then I tear off the excess. Now I tear the paper rather than cut the paper, because as you tear the paper, it feathers the paper out, so it'll give you a smoother transition rather than a hard cut edge, because this is going to become the inside of your ring band, and you want this to be as smooth as possible. You don't want a step there. So matching that straight line, wrap it as tightly as you can, and I use a little bit of Scotch tape to secure this down. And my Scotch tape, the cut edges of my Scotch tape are here and here, not here and here, because those little cut edges can actually poke up into your ring, and I find Scotch tape gives a nice smooth edge. Now that straight line, when you actually present your clay ring onto the ring mandrel, then it's going to give you a little guideline, so you've got a nice straight guideline to follow to put your ring on. So whether you're using the paper or using the Teflon, I've drawn a little line on my little Teflon, very thin Teflon it is too, and again I would just wrap this round and secure it with a bit of tape before I get my ring on there. So that's preparing your mandrel. So yeah, size wise, so we've made your ring, we've got it onto the mandrel. Now when you get it onto the mandrel, you've got to make sure that you're creating this seamless join, because if you don't create that seamless join, morning Richard, I'm saying afternoon Richard, if you don't create that seamless join, then you might end up having to fill any little gaps in there, and by filling the gaps, you're altering the size of that ring, because you're going to have to fill it and maybe sand it or file it. So the less intervention you can do on the inside of that ring, the better, as you take things forward before you fire it. So you want it to be as flawless and as seamless as possible with that join. So my little chart, going back to my little chart, covers Art Clay Silver 999, Art Clay Silver 950, PMC 1 Fire Sterling, PMC Flex, and EZ 960. So that's the well, you may or may not have seen EZ 960. Now I'm not working in any other brands, I don't work in any base metals, so if you want any results on what they would do, then I suggest you do your own firing and samples, because I don't stock that material. But I'm more than happy to share with you this, which is what I've done, and I standardise these firing schedules so that there is a comparison on the shrinkage rate. So I'll give you another closer look once again. Again, can you all see? That's too close. There we go. You can all see that. And as I say, I will post a picture of this as we as I finish this, I'll post a photo. I've taken a photo on my phone of this. Now the only other box that's not filled in here is this box here in the middle, and I've just added this because I actually did this as a chart ages ago, but I've added this one in now because the ACS 950 is a little bit of a fickle clay. I find that if you're making a ring in ACS 950, that's our clay silver 950, you will have put your little ring onto your mandrel, and then you set these aside to dry. Now the ACS 950 has quite a high shrinkage rate from being wet clay to dry clay, and if you've wrapped your clay really tightly onto the ring mandrel, I've seen splitting happen. I've seen things crack and split. So what you need to do is wrap your clay on here. This is if you're using the ACS 950. Put your clay onto here, give it about 15-20 minutes till it's sort of leather hard, and then very carefully you're going to slip off the ring and the paper, whatever you're using, and then put it to dry again, because where the clay is trying to shrink, if it's got restricted by the ring mandrel, it can begin to crack. Whereas if you take it off and you only got the paper or the Teflon, as it shrinks, it's got a little more give into it, so it will shrink a little more, and then you won't get any stress cracks happening in your clay. So this is why I've done this, because once it's plaster dry, you might find it shrunk a little more. So once it's plaster dry and just before you're ready to fire, although we started making it on a UK 10, you will find it's a different size again by the time it's plaster dry. So that's why I've added that little box in there. So you may want to start taking measurements of plaster dry, so that you've got a record of what you're doing. Where am I up to now? Firing. So before you take your pieces to fire, you really need to make sure that, again, you've got the inside as smooth and as neat and as tidy as possible. I can't stress that enough, because when you, after firing and you come to polishing, you don't want to be grinding away any of the sizing. Again, if you start sanding away at the inside because you've got a ding, a line, a flaw, a scratch, a mark or something, you start sanding away on the inside, that's going to adjust the sizing of your ring. So as I say, the less intervention you can do on this inside of this ring, the better as you take things forwards. Now, when it comes to firing your rings, I'm quite happy to fire certainly flat band rings, things like little flat band ring like this. I'm happy to fire them on a piece of fiberboard, sitting flat on the fiberboard in the kiln like this, just absolutely fine. Even if the ring has got a little bit of shape to it, and I've got another little illustration here. So this is my flat band ring, but even if your ring is this sort of shape, I'm happy to see that sit flat on its side as well, as long as it's on fiberboard. I don't find there's any dragging or scratching or distorting of the shape of the ring once it's fired. The fiberboard is quite gentle, so it doesn't restrict in any way the shrinkage. However, if you've got something with a stone in it and you're scared that stone, now here's my big stone, if you're scared that stone may sort of dislodge, if it's laying on its side like this on the ring, if you're scared that the stone may dislodge a little during the firing process, then you can prop your rings so that they are sitting upright and the stone is face up to the ceiling of your kiln if you're going to fire in this way. And you do that by propping it. Let me have a look. I can show you an example of that with a bit of fiberboard, take a piece of fiberboard, or take a strip of fiberboard and put a little bit of fiber blanket onto it as well, and prop the ring between two of the kiln feet. If I show you this image, so it's kind of suspended. Now that fiber blanket is not tight around the ring. There is room for that ring to shrink. Now I know that's a straight band ring, and I'm talking about perhaps rings that might have gemstones in that you want to fire, but that's another option for you to fire your ring, so it can still shrink in there. There are also some ring pellets you can buy, and you can either make your own, and they are made of investments, and you can get the little investment casting plugs from places like Rio Grande and Metal Clay. They have all these little casts that you can do, and they do just look like little tubes. And the idea is that you would make this little ring plug the size you intend your ring to be shrunk to, and you can pop it inside of your ring and fire it. Now there are these investment ones. I think there are also ceramic ring plugs as well that you can put in there as well, and you can fire your pieces. Now I've never used I tell a lie, I did use a ring plug once, and I wasn't that impressed with the results, because it scratched up all the inside of my ring, and that meant I had to do an awful lot of polishing on the inside, so that put me off using ring plugs. Now it's entirely up to you if you want to try them, but you know, I'm not a fan. I'm just putting it out there. I'm not a fan of the ring plugs myself, but they are out there if you want to use them. You can either make your own of investments. I know lots of people do use them, or you can get the ceramic ones, and the ceramic ones are reusable really, so you can use those over and over again. However, the investment plugs, you put them in, you fire, and then when you take your piece out of the kiln, you quench the whole thing in water, and the investment plug will just kind of dissolve and disappear. It just goes away. But I've not relished the finish that I've had on the inside of the ring, having spent a bit of time, you know, making sure the inside of the ring is as clean and as perfect as it can be before it gets fired. And then when it got fired with the ring plug in, I was like, oh, I was so disappointed. So it kind of put me off. So again, it's personal choice. If you want to give them a try, they are available to use. What else do we need to say? Let me have a little look. Sizing. Now, there is this thing, if anybody needs to download this, you can get this off the internet. International ring size conversion chart. It's quite big. It goes on a bit, because if, like me, you've got a ring gauge like this, and this is a Japanese sizes, which is numbers, and then I've got an English wheat chief ring sizes, which is letters, and then I've got my ring mandrels are American, so they're different sizes again. So it can all get a little bit confusing. So yeah, if you need the conversion chart, you can download these off the internet, and if you just put international ring size conversion chart, you'll find it there, and you can download it. You've got references there if you need them. Also on here are the internal circumferences, or the internal diameters. So, you know, if you ever want to reference those as well, you can reference those as well. But all your measurements and are there. Now, it would be wonderful if all the different countries around the world used the same, whether it's a lettering or numbering system, but they don't. You know, they're all different. The British and Australian are letters, the US and Canada are numbers. We've got French and Russian, which are numbers, and the German are numbers, and the Japanese are numbers. Swiss are numbers, but they all use a different numbering system. So how confusing is that? But hey ho, if you download the ring conversion chart and you've ended up with different bits and pieces like me, a Japanese one of these and an English one of these and American some of them, then you've got this little chart to help you and guide you along your way. So shrinkage, again, I will post this as a picture in there so you can see the shrinkage rates you get. Increments of about 0.5 mil, I kind of don't take too much notice of. About half size, I think you can get away with a half size either way on a ring. But yes, there you go. There's my ring chart and my samples from all the samples I've ever done. So as I say, I will post these on for you as a little picture so you can have a look at it, and you can reference these in the future. Lynn, you're giving me question marks. Can you torch fire rings? Providing you're using Art Clay 999, yes, you can torch fire it. The Art Clay 950, the PMC One Fire Sterling, PMC Flex and EZ 960 all need kiln firing, I'm afraid. But if you're using the Art Clay 999, they will torch fire or gas hob fire. But, you know, the longer and hotter you can fire for, the better. Which is why I've standardized these firing schedules. So if you torch firing, I would say try and fire for as long as you can, probably about 10 minutes is as much as your torch will stand. It'll depend on the size of your torch, but the longer and hotter you can fire, the better. So I hope that kind of helps. So I hope that bit of information is all of some use to any of you. What else can I tell you? What else is coming up? Not a lot. It's a pretty day. I'm going swimming soon. I'm going to go swimming shortly. Yeah, I've got, it's nearly the end of the month. On the 1st of May, I put out my MailChimp newsletter, which I'll be putting out, that's Saturday, isn't it? So Saturday, I'll be putting out my new MailChimp newsletter, which will tell you about any updates I've got. I've got a couple of new Zoom classes I'm going to be running. I'm going to be running this one to make these Art Deco inspired pieces. I made these a little while back and got a lovely response, so I'm going to teach that as a Zoom class. So if you're interested, then yeah, just either sign up to my MailChimp newsletter or look out for the newsletter on Saturday. And I've got lots of other things coming up too. So I will love you and leave you and say thank you for joining me. I hope you found some of what I've said today a little bit useful on those ring sizes and ring shrinkage. They're all the tips I can give you for now. Good luck with making rings. And as I say, I can't recommend enough that you make your own little chart. Because it's the only way you're going to see some consistency in your own work. So yeah, take care, folks. I'm not a fan of making rings, but I'm going to have a go this evening. Thank you, Wiz. Yeah, do have a go. What is it you struggle with, Wiz? What is it you struggle with making rings? Is it the sizing or is there something else? Let me know. But yes, I hope it all helps, and thank you for joining me. So where are we? Next week. I'll be here next week. Take care. Yeah, have a nice swim. Thanks, I will. The join, you find the join a problem. Oh, okay, Wiz. I understand. So perhaps perhaps a little bit of tuition on getting a seamless join is what you need. Okay, so have we got a few more minutes? Shall I show you how to do a seamless join? Right, bear with me and I'll do that. Let me just grab a few bits. Spritz of water in here, my shot pot. I'm going to prep a mandrel. Let me find a little one. got a little mandrel. Got my bit of Teflon. Let's do that now. Wrapped it on here. My bit of tape. Okay, so prepped up my little bit of Teflon on there. I've got my 1mm spacers, bit of badger balm on my tile. Okay, let me find a bit of clay. Ugh, hang on, a bit of clay. I found a bit of clay. And fast and hard roll this up. Start it in a bit of a sausage of clay. I know you can't see. And then I'm going to roll this out to be a long thin strip. Long thin strip. Long thin strip. Flip. Long thin strip. Okay. So now I've got my long thin strip. I'm going to just lift it up a little and lay it over that little mandrel. I've laid it over the mandrel using the edge of the strip against the edge of that mark, that pencil mark I've got, or pen mark I've got on here. And as you can see, it's kind of draping over the mandrel. Now I'll wrap this around. I don't want to kind of pick the clay up in the air and let it dangle because it stretches. So that's why I kind of, there we go. And as it comes round, you've got a little overlap there. So if I take my craft knife or needle tool and I'm going to cut through both top and bottom layer. Now this doesn't matter whether it's straight or whether it's on an angle. I'll cut through top and bottom layer. Now I hold this end finger and thumb, little finger on here, and my two little middle fingers come here to support what else is happening. So I just take away the excess from there, let that drop forwards. Whoops. Let that little bit drop forwards onto my fingers so that I can remove that little bit of excess from the inside here. Now this cut edge that you can see, I'm going to use the edge of my thumb against, I call it my cliff edge, so that little cliff edge, my thumb sits up right up against it. Now I'm not on top of the clay, I'm literally beside it. And now I take my thumb and push down with my thumb, and it kind of spreads my little fatty bit of my thumb, but grabbing a hold of the cliff edge of the clay, and as I swipe down, it kind of swipes out a little ramp of clay. Can you see that? I hope so. The focus is not very good on there. Anyway, and then with a little bit of syringe, I'm going to squeeze a bit of syringe or paste, whatever you prefer or whatever you've got at hand. I just happen to have my syringe right in front of me. Wrap this around again. And I get to that little join. Now at the moment that join is looking pretty ugly. Alright, so now I want my rubber tip tool. I'm going to get spritz of water in front of me. Just take my rubber tip tool, make sure it's clean, it's got no clay on it, but it's just got a little bit of water on there. And over that join, I hope I'm close enough, I'm just going to very gently blend. So I'm kind of dragging the clay from that side to this side with the little splitters at the top here. So just blend it in very smoothly, very gently. Now I'm not squashing it, I'm just blending it. Okay, now you do find the clay kind of sprawls out a little bit, the excess clay sprawls out at the sides here and here. So you end up with a little bit of excess either side, that's okay. Wet finger, and then I just rub over the surface of that join. And again. And I've got, oops, I've got a hair in that now. Hang on, let me get rid of that. Tweezers. Where did you come from? Okay. So there's my join. You can just about see it. But the important thing is your little thumb and wiping out that join so that you end up with a literally to nothing, that you haven't got any step on the inside. Because if you've got a step on the inside, when you take that ring off, you'll find there's a gap or a ridge or something. So smooth it away to nothing, bit of liner paste or syringe, blend it in, and then with your finger blend over the top like so. And I will deal with that little bit of excess either side once this has dried. So what happens next is I just pop that to dry. So that stands up like this onto my little cup warmer to dry. Like that. So I'll just put that over there on my cup warmer to dry. And then once that's dry, I can take it off, take the little bit of Teflon out, and generally the inside of there is almost seamless. It's as seamless as I can possibly make it. So I hope that helps. I hope that helps a bit with your ring making. If you've got any more questions, anything else you'd like me to tell you, yeah, drop me a line, let me know. Hi Annika, where's magic? I've never seen the thumb trick before. Oh well, I hope that helps. Smudge, it's nothing, blend it out to nothing. That's my like real top tip. So yeah, when you get it to this point, you've got it on the ring mandrel, cut edge, a bit of clay there. So yeah, it's that cut edge you want to literally kind of smudge out to nothing, so it just like wipes away, if you understand what I mean. Just swipe it away until you've got no step in there whatsoever. That's the best thing I can recommend. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for joining me. Hope you can join me again next week.